I gotta say, I really like this StreamYard house music. It gets me grooving in the Sunday morning. Every Sunday morning is kind of like Christmas to me. Why? Because we got a full slate of NFL games. We've got fantasy. We've got DFS. And we can celebrate a Browns victory on Thursday night against the Steelers. That is only the 10th time we've beaten the Steelers since 1999, which is borderline insane considering we play them twice a year. Coffee's good. Another insane statistic is since 1999, Kevin Stefanski is now the only coach for the Browns to beat the Steelers 3 separate times. More importantly, on the Cleveland tip, though, the Guardians are going to the playoffs. They've won 17 out of their last 20. They've opened up, I think, a 9-game lead on the Sox. It's over. We're going to the playoffs, and we are the hottest team in baseball heading in. So let's go. Let's go, Guards. But this is not a baseball show. It's a DFS fantasy football show. Please allow me to introduce to you my faithful and favorite co-host, Mr. Torque Penderloin, a.k.a. Mr. Andrew Pate. What is going on this morning, Mr. Pate?
It's a beautiful day. That's all I can say. Sorry for the noise. I'm just excited about Sunday. Football, more football. I hope everybody's as stoked as I am. Thanks for welcoming me in.
Let's get right to it because we've got a lot to cover today. There is a lot more points on the board today than last week in terms of the lines, the over-unders. It's a good week for some stacks. There's a lot of sleepers out there, and we've got a lot of injuries that we need to update. Are you going to be able to help me out on those injuries like last week?
Absolutely. Working on Julio Jones right now. I got to figure out if he's active or not.
I believe he is expected to play.
Oh,
but again, it's a tough one.
Looks
all right,
like...
so who do we have here? Some besties. I think Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are going to tear it up today. They're going to tear it up because they do the same thing every week. They tear it up. Who's the number one leading wide receiving scorer in fantasy? Stephon Diggs, but he's priced as like the 4th or 5th highest. All right, let's recap. Let's recap last week. It was not my best fantasy week. It was not my best DFS week. It was a tough week, although my lineups were one for one. So if you used my lineups, you won one, you lost one. The value guys I liked last week, the ones that hit, Curtis Samuel hit big, Charlie Kirk hit big, Dortch scored another touchdown. Our new favorite player, Greg Dortch. Who didn't hit? Well, Javonte Williams, he didn't kill your lineup, but he didn't pop. Darrell Henderson, again, he scored a touchdown. He didn't kill your lineup, but he didn't pop. Jarvis didn't do much. Trey Lance got hurt. Allen Robinson, he scored a touchdown, but what a lot of people don't know if you didn't watch the game, he actually had 2 touchdowns. The second touchdown was ruled back by a really bad call, in my opinion. And then I think they went to Kupp on the next play. But A-Rob, they targeted him around the red zone. Rex Burkhead, awful. Looks like Dameon Pierce is officially taken over. Miami D, I mean, I didn't even know it was possible for your defense to get negative points, but they did. So that was a bad list of value guys. But even worse were the guys I loved. Debo, no. Cordarrelle last week, no, although I'm back on him again this week. Brandon Cooks, he didn't kill you, but certainly didn't help you. Nick Chubb was a great play last week. The card to Devonte Adams stack. I think Devonte Adams had 2 catches. He did score a touchdown, but at his price tag, you need more than that. Saquon, he didn't kill you last week, but he's expensive. I think he had like 70-some yards rushing in the second half alone. So he's still a guy that you want to look at, although, you know, the Giants are the Giants. Tyreek Hill hit big. Lamar Jackson hit big. If you had went with Chubb, Lamar Jackson, and Tyreek Hill as your core, should have put out a winner. Fournette, again, didn't kill you, but didn't pop. Jamar Chase had a pretty rough week for his salary. I'm much better at hating, it appears, because the guys I hated last week turned out well. Kyler Murray had a good game, but Evans got thrown out of the game. We talked last week about his matchup with Marshawn Lattimore and how that just doesn't work out well for him. Brady stunk it up last week. Mariota stunk it up. Christian McCaffrey stunk it up. Joe Mixon, CeeDee Lamb, Deontay Johnson, and Hollywood Brown all performed below their price tags. Amari Cooper had a big week, over 100 yards. So that was a good little run there. Now, this next one I'm going to show you. You got to stick with me, y'all. You got to believe, because This FanDuel lineup that I put in last week not only was a bad lineup, it may have been the worst FanDuel lineup I've ever put in. One of the top 5 I've ever put in. And I've been doing FanDuel for over 10 years. So just, come back with me this week. We're going to come back from this. But this was not good here. David Carr was terrible. Cordarrelle terrible. We already talked about this. This lineup was awful. Judy got hurt. Not one guy hit. Not one. So that was tough. I think I had like 78 points, which scoring under 100 is almost difficult to do if you use all your money. So that was pretty bad. However, the DraftKings lineup did win money. It was a winner, even with Trey Lance getting hurt in the first quarter, because guys like Nick Chubb, Curtis Samuel, Charlie Kirk, and Tyreek Hill all showed out big time. So that was a lineup. So if you stick with me, you went 1 for 1 last week. Probably lost a little money overall because of the VIG, as they say. But not terrible. Picks last week, are you kidding me? Why am I? Because I lost all 3, but why is it like, are you kidding me? I lost all 3. Well, that's because the Raiders had Arizona put away. Baltimore had Miami up by 21 in the fourth quarter. So those were 2 that I was locking in. These are winners. And yeah, not so much. But we're going to come back this week. We've got 6 picks this week, 3 from me and 3 from Pate. So let's get into my overall record. Individual plays. That is the record for my value picks, hate, and love lists. I'm going to say last week was a loser in that regard, so I went 0-1. FanDuel DraftKings lineup that we said was 1-1. Picks against the spread, 0-3. Not good. Not good. Let's keep moving forward. All right, so let's look at this injury report this week. Who is officially out? Hunter Renfrow. Mike Evans is suspended, as we said. Sammy Watkins is out, and he's on the IR now, so something to keep your eye on. And Rondale Moore is still out. And who do we like when Rondale Moore is out? It's Greg Dortch, of course.
Human Torch.
The legendary Greg Dortch. Alvin Camaro is questionable, expected to play. James Winston, questionable, expected to play. I didn't know this when I took the Saints last week, but Jameis Winston has 4 broken vertebrae in his back that he's playing through. So if you're wondering why I'm down on the Saints this week, that's why. He did not look good throwing the ball this last week. That's an injury that takes a while to heal. And so I'm just really low on the Saints this week. DeAndre Swift and Hockenson are expected to play. Gabe Davis is expected to play. Not sure about Dawson Knox. J.K. Dobbins will finally make his debut today after he's been saying he'll play week 1 and week 2. They held him out, but he's ready to go. I wouldn't roster him. They might have him on a snap count or something like that, but let's just see how he does. Jacoby Myers. I read that he was trending towards being out after not logging any practice on Friday. So that is one to check because he's a good play. He's getting a lot of targets this season, but can't play him if he's out. Corey Davis is questionable, expected to play. Josh Jacobs. I haven't heard the word on Josh Jacobs. He was sick. They said he wasn't going to travel with the team, but then he did travel. So I expect him to play. I expect Keenan Allen is a true game time decision. No clue about Connor, questionable. Randall Cobb, questionable. He's expected to play. Russell Gage is expected to play. Julio Jones, not sure. And Rashad Perryman, not sure. The Tampa Bay wide receiving core still banged up. Any updates in that regard?
Yeah, real quick. Jacoby Myers, it looks like he is out. He is not playing today.
Okay, Myers is out.
Josh Jacobs has suited up and looks like he is going to play.
All right. It's not a terrible play to roll with Jacobs today. His price falls a little bit every week. I don't have him, but not a terrible play. So there's your injury updates for week 3. Moving on. Let's talk about stacks. Last week, there was only one game that was had an over or under of 50 or more, and there were several around 40, 41, 39.5. This week, not so much. We're talking about a lot of scoring going on in the NFL this week, which makes for a great DFS and fantasy week. Number 1 on the board as far as total points are Bills Dolphins. The entire Bills secondary is banged up. So a lot of people are on Tua and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I love Jalen Waddle. I did actually audibly give Jalen Waddle as a play last week, although he wasn't on my list. But what concerns me is the Bills pass rush. You know, their secondary doesn't rush the passer. and their pass rush through 2 weeks has looked so good. And Tua has not faced a pass rush like this yet this season. I know a lot of people are real high on Tua, and then you still have the doubters out there. So let's just see how this shakes out. I'm kind of staying away from the Dolphins, though. I know that I'm alone in that regard. We got the Lions Vikings 52.5. I do have a stack with the Vikings, or a stack for that game. Chiefs Colts 50.5. Rams Cardinals 48.5. Eagles Commanders 48.5. And then I think the sneaky stack this week is to load up on the Bengals, particularly Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. We haven't seen it through 2 weeks. I think their ownership will be low. I think that the Jets gave up 100 yards last week to Amari Cooper and made Jacoby Brissett look like a Pro Bowler. In other words, their secondary and their defense overall is not good. I think this will be the week that Burrow and Chase and T. Higgins come back and kind of score a lot of points. Another thing about Joe Burrow, he's pissed. He deleted all his social media this week. So you know what that means. You're going to win with him or lose or push. But he's definitely focused. I see the Bengals finally getting off the schneid this week. As a Browns fan, I would like to see the Jets win. Value plays I like this week. Let's talk about Carson Wentz. I actually cannot believe that I put Carson Wentz on this list because I hate Carson Wentz. However, I like their matchup. It could be a potential shootout with the Eagles. Washington's offense has been chugging along. You know, people don't see Washington as a good offensive team. But, the combination of Dotson and Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin is giving people problems. Logan Thomas is coming back. You know, he got a lot more snaps last week than he did in week 1, coming back from the ACL. And I just think that could be a shootout. I'm not rostering Wentz because I just physically can't, but I think he's a good play. Marcus Mariota as well is a good play. He's cheap he's cheaper on DraftKings, but he's cheap on both. Dameon Pierce, after him, me talking smack about him last week, it looks like they're ready to, give this guy the ball a lot. He had a lot more carries last week than he did in week 1, which meant less points for Rex Burkhead, which meant, terrible reflection on my rankings. Raheem Mostert. I know I said I was staying away from a lot of Dolphins, but I love Mostert. Number 1, I love the increase in his usage from week 1 to week 2. He's number 2 in the NFL in terms of not missed tackles, but there's a stat of like eluded defenders or something like that. This guy can pop. He's fast. And I've been saying since the offseason, they paid him a lot more than they paid Chase Edmonds. And Chase Edmonds has never really proven to be a durable 3-down back. Mostert actually hasn't either, but I think that they're trending in the direction of giving the ball to Mostert a lot. Also, how do you neutralize the Bills' pass rush? You got to run, you got to screen, you got to get outside. So we'll see. Cam Akers, that's a gut play. I don't really have much data on him, but he was definitely in the doghouse week 1 where he got like 2 or 3 carries, and then last week seemed to be back to his old self. And he's good. Like if he's going to get the ball, he is good. The Rams have an interesting matchup against Arizona this week as well. David Montgomery, who's only 5,900 on DraftKings, played over 80% of the snaps last week. In addition, they play Houston, who's allowed the 3rd most rushing yards per game. Montgomery is about as steady as you can get in fantasy. Fire him up. Nyheim Hines, this is another gut play, but the guy's had games of this year. He's got 4 reception in the first week, and I think 6 last week. And I go back to their coach in the offseason saying you should fire up Hines on your fantasy roster because they're going to try to throw him the ball a lot. It's a gut play, but he's super cheap. Juju Smith-Schuster is now the clear number 2 in Kansas City behind Travis Kelce. He's the number 1 receiver in Kansas City. And I don't know if you know anything about Kansas City, but they have this guy Mahomes who throws the ball out and he throws a lot of touchdowns. I like Juju. His price is low. I kind of like A-Rob. Like I said before, he should have scored 2 touchdowns last week. He only got 1. His target share is low. He has not been putting up numbers. So, again, with some risk. Drake London is a guy that I really, really like because even with Kyle Pitts out there, he's dominating the targets in Atlanta. Number 1 in Atlanta on targets. He's $6,700 on FanDuel. He's 6th in the NFL. This is Drake London. 6th in the NFL in yards gained per route run. So every time he runs a route, he's 6th in the NFL for gaining yards per route run. The only people he's behind are Stephon Diggs Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, A.J. Brown, and Justin Jefferson. That's elite company. He's handicapped a little because of Mariota's inability to throw accurately, but this guy is everything. He's everything that they advertise. He's big, he's strong, he's really good. So I love that pick this week. Greg Dortch, of course. Rondale Moore is out again. I actually like Arizona's offense in this game for a few reasons. Number one, Kyler Murray dominates cover 3. When teams play cover 3 against him, his numbers are really, really good historically. First 2 weeks, played cover 2 defenses, looked terrible, but the Rams play almost exclusively cover 3. And so that could be finally like an offensive explosion from Arizona. However, you got to factor in the Rams D. They're number 1 against the rush, but 27th against the pass so far this year. So we'll see. Curtis Samuel, I love him. Curtis Samuel is 5th in the NFL in receptions. And after 2 weeks, he's wide receiver 8, which means he's the eighth highest scoring wide receiver in the NFL in terms of fantasy. And he's priced as wide receiver 40 on DraftKings. So I love Curtis Samuel again. Fire him up. Treylon Banks, week 1, he was on the field for 38% of the snaps. Week 2, 73% of the snaps. And he currently has the highest target rate per route run in the NFL. So don't be afraid to fire him up. Week 1 target share was 16%. Week 2 target share was 32%. That means when they drop back, they throw the ball to Treylon Burks 32% of the time. And he's cheap. Garrett Wilson showed out last week. I was kind of glad that he showed out in Cleveland because he went to Ohio State. So it was kind of like a coming home party. He's tied for 9th in the league in targets. He's 1 target behind Justin Jefferson in that regard. And again, he's priced as a mid-tier wide receiver, so fire him up. Evan Ingram, he's doing kind of what they wanted him to do in New York. He's getting a ton of targets. I think he had 6 receptions last week, but only for like 45 yards. But they want him involved. The Jaguars clearly are trying to get him the ball. I'm a believer in Trevor Lawrence. I think that Jags offense is going to come a long way this year. Tyler Conklin, who the heck is that? It's a tight end for the Jets. He played pretty well against the Browns last week. He's getting a ton of targets as well. And so that's a guy that I would not hesitate at all to fire up just because of his usage. Zach Ertz. He ran a route on almost every single Kyler Murray drop back last week. He's not out there to block. He's out there to catch the ball. He had 11 targets last week. I already talked about how Kyler Murray loves to cover 3. I could see a big day from Murray and Ertz this week, although it's hard for me to jump on Murray just as bad as he looked in the last 3 games. When I say 3, I'm talking about that playoff game last year against the Rams as well. Don't forget about that. All right. Moving on. Guys I love this week. Josh Allen, especially, pair him up with Stephon Diggs. I mean, you don't have to don't overthink that too much. The Dolphins gave up a lot of points last week to the Ravens, even though they came back and won. I like Joe Burrow. We talked about get right game against the Jets. I love pairing him with Chase because I think after the first 2 weeks, their ownership will be very low. People are down on them, especially Jamar Chase. Leonard Fournette, this guy he's their 3-down back. He's on the field all the time. He's nursing a slight hamstring injury, but he played through it last week. And he promised his fantasy owners after last week that he would get them some points this week. So Fournette, if you don't show out this week, it's on you, not me. Dalvin Cook is a gut play. He's an elite running back. He's at home. He's against the Lions. He has not had a breakout game this year. I could see him busting out and being RB1 easily this week. Cordarrelle Patterson. I'm going back to the well on Patterson. And that might seem crazy because he really, really burnt me last week. But here's an interesting stat about him. He's gained a first down on 37.5% of his carries, which is first in the NFL. Only the Browns, 49ers, and Eagles have more rushing attempts on the year than Atlanta. This is a team that wants to run the ball. They want Mariota to run it a little bit. They want Cordarrelle to be out there running the ball. He's also matchup proof. In other words, it doesn't really matter who they're playing, although this week they're playing Seattle, is it? Who's awful. So I would not hesitate to fire up Cordarrelle again. Stephon Diggs, we talked about. Justin Jefferson. Why do I love Justin Jefferson? Well, there's a lot of reasons. I'm really high on Justin Jefferson this week. First of all, the Lions, they play man coverage at the highest rate in the NFL. And Justin Jefferson destroys man coverage. Minnesota really wants to put some points on the board after they just got shellacked last week in primetime. The Lions' defense is not good. They give up a ton of points. And last year against the Lions, all Justin Jefferson did was game 1, 7 catches for 124 yards. Game 2, 11 catches for 182 yards and a touchdown. He's going to go off today. Fire him up. Cooper Kupp. I mean, look, it's hard to pay that salary, but the guy just, he's just too consistent. I don't put him in my lineups a lot, and I should. Last week, approaching halftime, he didn't have a catch, and he finished with 11 catches for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, it's just disgusting how much output this guy consistently gives his fantasy owners. So never be afraid to fire him up. I love A.J. Brown this week. A.J. Brown, trying to find my notes on him. I guess I didn't write it down. Yes, A.J. Brown. First of all, they're playing Washington. That game has shootout potential, stack potential. Washington gave up 117 yards to Charlie Kirk in week 1. They gave up 116 yards, 2 touchdowns to Amon St. Brown last week. There's no reason to believe that they're not going to give up a lot of yards to A.J. Brown this week. Another thing about Washington is they are one of the top 5 blitzing teams in the NFL. Ron Rivera loves to blitz. And since 2000, the year 2000, Brown has been the most productive receiver in the NFL against the blitz, and it's really not that close. Cooper Kupp is somewhat a distant second in that regard. So a lot of signals pointing to fire up A.J. Brown today. Devonte Adams, I do think the Raiders will be all right today. I actually have them picked. He burnt me last week, but he's too good not to bounce back. Also, Hunter Renfrow is out, meaning probably some more targets for Devonte. Jamar Chase, we already talked about. Mark Andrews, this guy should be priced as one of the top tight ends, and he's significantly below Kelsey, although I can see that they might have similar outputs. With the loss of Hollywood Brown, Mark Andrews is on the field 10% more snaps this year than last year, and he was on the field a lot last year. He's the number 1 guy, without question, as far as the Ravens are concerned. They don't throw the wide receivers very often. And I think, is Bateman out this week?
I think so.
I think Bateman's out. So, yeah, fire up Mark Andrews. Kyle Pitts. It's another guy that burnt me. He's burnt me before. He's burnt me a lot. He was only targeted on 10% of his routes last week, which is the lowest of his entire career. They play Seattle, who's terrible against the pass, much like the Browns did with Njoku on Thursday night, just feeding him the ball over the middle. I could see the Falcons doing it with Kyle Pitts this week. All the numbers are there in terms of routes run. You know, he's on the field a lot, usage. Everything is there except the targets. And so I think that, he's one of their better players. I think they're going to force feed him this week, maybe just out of spite.
Just real quick, it looks like Rashad Bateman is actually active.
Rashad Bateman's in. Okay, good.
Yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. And the Kyle Pitts thing, man, as a fantasy owner of Kyle Pitts, I mean, come on, Marcus Mariota. You fed Delaney Walker for so long in Tennessee. You can't throw my man like something. Come on. At some point, I do think Pitts does go off. It's just sad right now.
I think this could be the week. I mean, at home against Seattle, they're 29th against the pass after 2 weeks. Now, again, a lot of these stats, like 29th against the pass, first against the rush, we're only 2 weeks into the year. So I always say fantasy, DFS particularly, is the first 3 to 4 weeks are the most difficult. After about 3 to 4 weeks, you start getting some more reliable data to go on. But, we got to go with a lot of gut plays this week. Guys, I hate this week. I hate all the Dolphins except Mostert and Waddle. But if you just look what the Bills have done in their first 2 games, I know their secondary is banged up, but they're one of the top 2 or 3 NFL defenses. And it's just tough to play guys against them. It's just tough. I also think that the Dolphins are pretty popular this week after last week. So I'm always looking for people that have lower ownership. I don't like any of the Saints just because they're banged up. Winston is playing literally with a broken back. I don't know how that works. He was really inaccurate last week. I don't see that healing in 1 week. Camara's still hurting. He's got a rib cartilage fracture, which they say can be more painful than an actual rib fracture. The timetable on that is like 4 to 5 weeks, and he's in week 2. So he's going to play, but I just see him as being limited. Justin Herbert, anyone know if he's playing or not? I saw the line jump from 7 to 3.5 overnight on that game this week, and that just kind of alerted me that he probably won't play today. I know he's a true game time, and it's a 4:00 game, so that's one, roster him at your own risk. This is tough for me to put Lamar Jackson on the hate list after he was on the love list last week. But I see, there's a thing in fantasy, recency bias. People love to jump on the guy who went off last week. No one can put up those numbers every week, not even Lamar. And so I see him being highly owned and not producing the output he put out last week. Jonathan Taylor, the Colts, I don't know. Are they just a mess? Did they miss Pittman that much last week? They just don't look great. He's had one really good week and one not so good week. I do think Pittman coming back will help him. I did read that the other receivers on Indianapolis, Doolin and Saint something, they get the least separation of any crew in the league. Like Doolin got 0 yards of separation according to PFF last week. So it's no wonder Matt Ryan can't find anyone to throw the ball to. These guys can't get open. Johann Dodson, he's had 2 great weeks. So I'm kind of putting a risk on the hate list this week. However, this is matchup specific. Johann Dodson he loves zone going back to college. And Curtis Samuel loves man. And Washington plays. I got to write this stuff down. Who's Washington play again? Philly. They love to play man. So fire him up, or don't fire up Dotson, but go with Samuel or McLaurin. Christian McCaffrey, I have to see it before I justify that price. I haven't seen it yet this year. Aaron Jones going up against the Bucs D. Yikes, that Bucs D is solid. So I'm staying away from Aaron Jones this week. I'm staying away from pretty much all Packers and Bucs except for Fournette because that game has a very low over-under. And to be honest, I'd bet the under. Anyone to add to this? Anyone you hate this week?
No, not a lot of hate. I mean, I think you got it pretty spot on. The Justin Herbert thing, I mean, apparently he's going to decide if he can play based on some kind of pain-killing injection. Just don't expect him to be that great this week anyway. Same thing with the Saints. And then, God, so many injuries already week 2. But so it goes. Jonathan Taylor, though, is interesting because, I mean, how do you keep the Chiefs off the field? You run the ball, and so I think they try to feed him early. And whether or not it works out, we'll see. But, they're a complete train wreck, as you said right now, the Colts are, and it's hard to trust anybody on that roster.
Yeah, man, I don't mind rostering Taylor if everyone's price was equal. He's just so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move it on. Here's my FanDuel. I'm giving 2 FanDuel lineups this week. This is my Minnesota stack. Minnesota Lions stack. We got Cousins, Akers, Montgomery, Justin Jefferson. I love Justin Jefferson this week. I think his ceiling could be like 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. I'm not exaggerating. Running that back with Amon St. Brown for Detroit. So I got the 2-to-1 stack. That's 2 players for Minnesota, 1 for Detroit. And let's just hope to get a lot of scoring. We've got the Rook, Treylon Burks at 5,900 for Tennessee. My guy Conklin on the Jets, just because of his usage. I'm taking a big-time risk here with McLaurin just because he fit the salary. I kind of wanted to put Samuel in there, but I stuck with McLaurin. He's the better player overall. And Miami defense, which is super cheap. FanDuel lineup of the week number 2. Going Mariota, Alvin Cook, Raheem Mostert. Love him this week. Love Devonte Adams. Love Stephon Diggs. Love Drake London. Love Ertz. I really like this lineup. Honestly, out of the 2, this isn't a stacked lineup. In other words, I don't have much correlation here. I don't have a lot of guys on the same team that are going to score together. But these are just some of my favorite plays, and they all just kind of fit this week. The Jaguars D is just a throw-in. Just a cheap D. Mr. Pate. Actually, here's my I'm going to give my DraftKings and then Mr. Pate's DraftKings lineup of the week. I've got Allen, who I told you I love with Diggs in the flex. Fournette I love this week. Nyheim Hines, gut play. Greg Dortch, my new favorite player. My jersey's on the way. And then Rondale Moore will come back and no. Anyways, Juju, Smith, Schuster. Like I said, he's the clear number one receiver as far as wide receivers in Kansas City behind Kelsey. Jalen Waddle, I just love this guy. I know I said I'm not rostering any Dolphins, but this guy appears to be matchup proof. I think he's one of the most underrated receivers in the league, if not the most underrated. All he does is produce.
Now here's a guy.
Now basically
though, best touchdown celebration in the league. I can't think of a better one.
Was he the one that did? Who did the shots last weweek?
I think that was Green Bay, wasn't it?
That was great.
They were joking about Aaron Rodgers like feeding his team ayahuasca or something, and
right. They whoever scored a touchdown took the ball, and everyone held out there like a hand, like a shot glass, and he filled them all up, and then they did the shot, and then passed out in the end zone. It was great. Again, I got that Jags D. I have no reason to take them other than I'm on the Jags this year. I think they're underrated, and we're looking again for the Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs connection. Mr. Pate, I've seen your lineup. I like it. Go ahead and explain here.
Rebound game for Joe Burrow. As you said, he's pissed. I didn't know about the social media thing, but that just adds more fuel to my fire as far as picking him. The Jets D is absolutely freaking atrocious against the Pat. I mean, what are they giving up, like 27 points a game, something like that? Awesome. So love Joe Burrow. Love Jamar Chase for that matter, which is why I kind of handcuffed them together. Jamar Chase, you can't keep him down. He had a rough week last week against the Cowboys, but bounce back week for him. Fournette, love him against the Packers defense. I mean, they force feed him. Dalvin Cook, that Minnesota line. I mean, I would say, look, it's the NFL, and you got to forget what you just saw. And so, week by week, everybody's high on Minnesota. Then they go and get smacked around by Philly, and that line went from the look ahead line was like -8, and it got all the way down to -6. I kind of like them as just an outright pick or against the spread, but anyway, so stacked a few expensive guys up top, but going with some sleepers at wide receiver and Scotty Miller. They've got no receivers down there. Brady loves Scotty Miller. That's just a complete gut call on my part. Same with Matt Collins. Didn't have a lot going on week one, but had a lot of targets last week. Love Devonte, but somebody else in theory has got to catch the ball.
I love that price too.
That price is pretty silly. I mean, and he's a big dude and can get separation, and so we'll see. Goddard, another gut call.
That's going to be shootout potential in that game.
Shootout potential in that game. By the way, just a fun fact: I kind of went back and forth on Joe Burrow versus Jalen Hurts. I did not realize that Jalen Hurts through the first 2 weeks, he had 11 carries and then 17 last week, which is mind-boggling to me. David Montgomery.
He's looking like the early choice for fantasy MVP.
So far, so good for sure. Yeah. David Montgomery, for all the reasons you listed before. I mean, he's just a steady hand at flex. And I think that Chicago, they have a decent game today, and I think he performs well. The Bucs D has been sneaky good through the first 2 weeks.
Amazing. Really good.
Not sure how it works against Aaron Rodgers and co, but it's hard at that price to pass them up. So, throwing some darts here and there, but if it hits, and we'll see.
How crazy is it that a game with the quarterbacks named Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers has an over-under of, I think it's about 40 and a half. I mean, it's so low because those defenses are so good. Tampa Bay is so banged up. Green Bay doesn't have any receivers. It's just strange.
And I'm telling you, and I love Scotty Miller just this week. And then but I will say, once I think Cole Beasley gets up to speed in that offense, I think he is going to be an absolute nightmare for opposing defenses. And I think he's going to have tremendous value going forward. So just something to look forward to in the future for Mr. Cole Beasley.
You know what Cole Beasley does as a hobby?
What's that?
He raps.
Oh gosh.
And so someone sent me a video of him rapping, and it was like he was at a radio station, and so they start playing this beat, and he starts rapping, and like in my head, I'm like, this motherfucker's not that bad. Like, I didn't know. I was like I wanted to laugh at him. I was expecting to laugh at him, and I was like, I can't hate. Let me see if I can find it here real quick.
Is he better than Dame Lillard?
Here it is. I found it. Let's see if I can get this playing here.
Live streaming can be tricky, and sometimes trying to find the right software to make your streams look really professional can be a real chore. The thing I like about StreamYard is that the user interface is really simple to understand.
You can see that, hear that?
Hey, so this is how we gonna do it.
Yeah. There he is. Can you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
Autobiography. Go Beasley out in stores now. Let's go, Beasley. Let's go.
My flow is pure gold. It's cold back on the microphone. Something like a ride of a beat. Like it's light cold. Thought I was gone, but I'm never leaving. I'm forever eating. Every season is heavy thieving. Stealing everything that I can from the man to my heavy breathing. Stopping, I'm dead. I ain't got competition leaping off of a ledge because they sleeping at first sight like they sleepwalking. What you can see stalking will turn you to meat at the flea market. I'm hunting for hands on Mike Tyson with the mic biting. Strike Titans with this God flow like Poseidon. This is how I like it. I'm telling myself, remind them as if they heard my own issue. Slick spit at its finest. Biggie and them white dickies, spiffy collar with rhyming time after time, but I'm making it where it's timeless. Really, I'm just here simply trying to grab their ears, but it appears ball and rapping can't mix like engineers. New York beats, Southern, what's the difference? Even trap, if I'm trapped in it, I'ma come and rip it. Dr. Dre can even stitch it. It's easy as easing in an easement with the width of a cricket. Stick and moving, I'ma end it, and it's just the beginning. So buckle up. Fly versus if you insecure, the tumble sucks. Have them writing ish with some bubble guts, cause coming after me is some trouble for your butts.
Like I said, I'm not signing a guy to a record contract, but not terrible.
You're not terrible. The first part, I was like, I heard a lot of Eminem because the highlight when he would finish his bar, he would just raise it, go up like one octave. I was like, but then
almost anything sounds good with a Dre beat behind you.
That beat is dope, man. So he did good. I give him credit. I mean, I couldn't do it, so who am I to judge?
Right. I mean, I could, but I don't want to embarrass anybody. But
come on.
Little quick shout out. Come watch Red Zone with us and tailgates to touchdowns and the Boards to Buckets crew. I'll be hosting at 1:00. We just got Red Zone playing. We're just talk football, talk fantasy, talk DFS. Love to talk some shit, talk some smack. I'll watch all my guys blow up. Pate can watch all his guys blow up. I'll make some money, or we'll lose or push. But we're all going to have a good time. Anything else before we get out of here?
Just want to, I think as opposed to last week's games, which, had a lot of comebacks at the end, but the first half of those games, pretty darn boring. I got a feeling we're going to see some fireworks today. I'm pretty excited. I think
it's a much more exciting DFS day, fantasy day, football day, just because of the lines. Last week, tons in the 40s. This week, a lot 45 and over and 3 in the 50s. So let's go. Let's just freaking go. Let's get these games started already.
Good luck, everybody. Y'all have a great day, man.
Yes, absolutely. Love that house music. Yo, we didn't do the picks. Okay, 1 minute pick here. Ready? Here we go. My picks against the spread. Titans plus 2.5. Patriots plus 3 versus Miami. No, they're not playing Miami. Whatever. And the Raiders minus 2. Who do you like?
Niners. That line's actually them minus 1.5 against the Broncos.
Minus 1.5.
Yeah, I looked at back up like, okay.
You like the money line in that too.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the money line. I honestly don't see and I say this in these games will be like like the Packers will mess around and lose by 1 to the Bucks or something. But I just take the money line on the Packers for sure. Fournette, as I said before, they're gonna force feed him. I like over 69.5 rushing yards.
The Packers my bad. Those are both minus 1.5.
They're both?
I think so.
I got them horribly wrong. Yeah, just take the money line then. I like Minnesota minus 6 against Detroit, but that's it's sneaky. So, and then the Bengals in their comeback game against the Jets, minus 6. But I like those lower spreads a little bit better. The Bucks offense is just terrible right now, and the Broncos are good at penalties and turnovers. So we'll see what happens.
And there you have it. Until next week. See y'all at 1.